Hello there. Welcome to the Force Collective. It's me, Shade. I didn't put much energy into that one. I'm not feeling it today. Okay, I just want to relax. That's why I called the stream Let's Relax today. Okay, that's all I want is to relax. I'm here with Commander Tano. So hi,
Hello.
nice to have you on here so you can relax with me. It's better to relax with friends. Sir AOA and Chrono hate us now. Okay, not Chrono, but Sir AOA does. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, no, Chrono's busy, but Sir AOA he just hates us. We'll
Yep.
tell him that when he shows up in like 10 minutes. I bet I'm thinking he'll show up in about 10 minutes. He'll wake up and be like, "Oh my gosh, it's past time for stream." Oh no, I can't do his accent. I'm not good at the Australian accent.
Like,
You think I'm
I
gonna
love
try?
I love the half-hearted American accent attempt at Saray away.
I told you I'm not really with it today. I've realized how out of it I am. Like these last few days have been just awful for me. And what I mean by that is I've had no energy for anything. Having COVID it isn't fun. It did this to me the last time I had COVID too. So it's not like a new thing for me. I expected this to happen.
Ugh.
Uh, yeah, it ain't been fun,
I,
but I'm here. That's all that
you are.
matters. Yes. So, you got anything to talk about? Because I clearly don't have anything to talk about at the moment.
Well, I was actually going to ask COVID, and once again, I don't. And once again, I probably I think everyone's had it, but I haven't had it to my knowledge, like anything symptomatic ever. But like, can you like taste and smell or whatever? Or
Funny enough, I did not lose my taste or smell.
oh, that's good.
It happened both times. Like I had my taste and smell through both times having COVID. Now, this will be a funny story. So, you know how I was talking about my job before stream, okay? Well, nobody
Right.
else here knows except for us. But basically, this is another story I wanted to tell then. Me and practically everybody in my area ended up with COVID. So, my team lead ended up with COVID on the same day that I did. We both got tested on the same day. I found out that I had it, and so I texted him. I'm like, "Hey, buddy, I got COVID." He's like, "I'm testing right now," and then like a minute or two later, he's like, "Yep, I got COVID." And then I asked or tell my other buddy who got tested the next day. He ended up having COVID, and the day before I went back, somebody else tested positive for COVID. And I'm just thinking, like, who did this to us? Who brought it in on us? And then a few other people that I know ended up getting it. Actually, one very recently. I think the other day they tested positive for COVID. Uh, so I mean, it's really going around. But almost everybody in our department and a few other people in throughout the store ended up getting it. So it was really going around that week. I don't know what happened, but it is what it is. I had to isolate myself inside this room that I'm currently in for 3 days.
Oh dear.
Yes, I was on. Well, technically 4 days. Um, the first day that I had it was on an off day, so I wasn't at work. But I started feeling really bad that day. Near the end of the day, I got really bad, and then I'm like, okay, if I don't feel better by tomorrow, I'm going to get tested. So next day, I wake up feeling just as bad. I'm like, okay, I guess I probably ought to get tested. So I tried the home test. Almost instantly, it told me I was positive for COVID, and I'm like, that's a little bit weird. It usually takes a little longer than that. I don't know how accurate
Yeah.
it is. So I went to a doctor. I was planning on doing that anyways because the home test, I certain jobs, I don't think our job will accept a home test. So I decide, I'm going to a doctor anyway. Might as well go today or that day, rather. But I went, and same exact thing happened. Like almost instantly, I tested positive with their tests, and I'm like, okay, do I have some sort of mutant version of COVID where I just test positive instantly? You know, is it that potent? Like, what's going on here? So they told me I had to stay home for 5 days, which I had already stayed home 2 of those days. So I had 3 more days to go. So I locked myself in this room for 3 days, and it was so weird not interacting with anybody. It was awful. I've never done that before. Never, because with my job, I interact with people on the daily.
Yeah.
It was just really odd. Like the only way I was able to interact with anybody was over like a call, or if I was playing. Well, I didn't really feel like playing games or anything like that, so I guess I didn't play a game. But I was calling people, even people that I live with. I was just calling them just to talk to them. Like I had nobody to talk to unless I did that. So it was a very odd experience. I've never done that before. Not even with the first time. Which that might be why everybody else caught it. Well, no, I was the last one to catch it the first time. Never mind. I was the first one to get it this time, and nobody else got it. Luckily, nobody else got it here. So my isolation did the trick. But it was fun being alone in a room with nothing to do except maybe watch something on TV or something like that.
Yep.
So yeah, but that's been my adventures for the last couple weeks. But how's thing? You got anything interesting?
Oh,
Share. I have nothing.
you know, so I've got family up in I've got family up in New England. I was actually in New Hampshire for several weeks. And I went and a few weeks ago I hiked up Mount Washington. And so that's like the highest point in the state. That's also the highest mountain in the Northeast. There's like something higher on the East Coast, like in North Carolina or wherever. I know nothing. I know nothing about North Carolina. You can tell. Like,
That makes two
um,
of us. I don't know much either.
great. And that's the thing. You're closer. Like you're closer to North Carolina. So if you don't know much about them, and then I don't feel so bad. Okay. Like,
Well,
but
I'm not much of a traveler, but I'm working on that. I'm actually going to Georgia in November. I've never been there.
ooh, where in
Yes, but
Georgia?
Atlanta.
Ooh, haven't been there. I've only been to Savannah, just kind of passing through on the way to Florida.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be like a four. I'm distracting you from your story. Go, tell your
Okay.
story.
So yeah, there. It's not much of a story. It's more of kind of the after story to the story. So I went up and did that, and that was cool and fun. And I will say, so one thing people don't understand is about Mount Washington or the White Mountains in New Hampshire. It's kind of one of the few regions in the eastern United States that like actively tries to kill people. Like, if that makes sense. And I mean through natural, things.
Yeah.
Not I mean,
Yeah.
we've got plenty of like human caused things that kill people, but I mean like, where nature tries to kill people, because for the most part like in the US, like east of the Mississippi, it's like you can go out the woods and you're pretty safe. There's not much that will kill you. You have to do very stupid things, but the White Mountains actually do like seem to have like, and Mount Washington in particular is like kind of like known as like the deadliest small mountain um, in the planet, and it's kind of because of where it's located with these kind of confluence of different air currents that they'll get like snow up there in the summer. Crazy like
Yeah.
highest winds recorded by man up there, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just kind of so I did that. That was fun. I picked a good day to do it, but I've been kind of just been like reading in kind of the weeks following all these stories afterwards people of about people like crazy like deaths and accidents and things happening there, like there, that there's
Hmm.
like I was reading this story about like there's like a so the Appalachian Trail kind of goes through that region. There's like apparently like a naked man like ranting and raving on one of the huts up there, and I'm like that's you know if he
What?
if he got all the way up to wherever in the whites, you know, just naked like that's pretty impressive. So it's or just reading about things about just kind of like people deciding to go off trails and like ending up at the bottom of cliffs and crazy stuff. So yeah, I've been kind of just kind of reading. That's been kind of my past couple weeks reading stuff like that, and then kind of getting the sick sort of Schadenfreude enjoyment out of like not enjoyment, but you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
look reading about idiot tourists doing things like that. So yeah, I'm just kind of trying to think of what other. I don't know much else as exciting has happened. I'm like trying to figure out what to do with myself before I start my next job after Labor Day, and so it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's one of those frustrating things. It's like you're presented with like so many possibilities and choices and what you could do with your time, and you spend so much time analyzing it that you use up all of that free time. So I'm trying to avoid that.
Well, I would suggest things, but I probably couldn't suggest anything good for you. I'm not good at it.
Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think if there's been anything else of note. It's been this isn't like life interesting things, but I have it has been interesting just reading over the past few weeks, just kind of just about general articles and things, and kind of about kind of business woes of Disney and Disney Plus and streaming services generally, and kind of thinking
Yeah.
about where things are going to go with all of that in the next few years.
Well, that actually sort of leads me into something I want to ask you about because I mean, frankly, I know the show isn't starring you because the show's not really that great from what I've seen. So I mean, it can't be starring you. But what about She-Hulk Attorney at Law? What do you think about that?
It's like beyond seeing like maybe an initial trailer somewhere and like hearing about the it's like I've been very and hearing kind of the what I would expect, both kind of comments from people associated with it, making it, and kind of commentary from people reacting to that. I'm not I'm not surprised about all that's transpiring. And it's I kind of just wonder when I see that, once again, when like the whole kind of She-Hulk thing, and that whole I don't even want to call it kerfuffle, but I have no other word for it. But it's like the usual exchange. Something, you know, some company puts out a show, it does poorly. People don't like it. And people give it bad reviews. Or they don't watch it. They don't, and it's like it's this usual same old cycle, and you see it with show after show, and then you see this with
Hmm.
Disney and Disney Plus, you see this with Netflix, you see this with Amazon Prime, you see this with all these different kind of entertainment companies and streaming services and things. It's like, at what point is someone going to kind of figure out? Well, I initially was thinking at one point is someone going to kind of figure out, oh, maybe we shouldn't, you know, we should rethink how we make shows and how we market them. But then I kind of think, I feel like at least on the marketing end, that's just kind of purposeful because at least it gets people talking about something. That's the thing. It's that I've heard more about kind of the reactions to She-Hulk than the actual content of the show itself. And it kind of makes me, and that's the thing. It's like that's, I think probably in Disney in certain Disney executives' eyes, that's fine because it's like, oh, at least people are talking about it. It gets clicks, and maybe people are going to kind of at least hate watch it. I that's the other thing. Sometimes I do wonder with some of these companies, like whether they create some content specifically so that they may realize deep down they can't necessarily get enough people to like love watch it, but maybe they could get more to just hate watch it. And yeah.
That is actually a very good point, and I just wonder myself, is that what they go for now? Is hate watching more than love watching? Because that's what it feels like. Though, from experience at this moment, I have no experience with the She-Hulk besides the trailers and a few clips online, so I guess I can't really say much yet. But that see, I'm about to maybe prove your point about the hate watching thing because I sort of want to watch it to see how bad it really is for myself.
I get it. That's the thing. It's and yeah, and it's like I'll probably find, I'm sure you can find even just on YouTube, frankly, like enough clips probably that where you could piece together enough content to know what you could do that for, for all kinds of things. I'm sure you could do with that. But yeah, I kind of wonder, and the other reason I sometimes wonder that is like thinking about how these shows are sometimes marketed and some of the kind of the ridiculous things that either people associate who made the show or like the social media teams for some of these companies, some of the things that they say or do are so ridiculous that it's like, are you trying to sabotage your own creation? It's not just that you're like as you'd say, you're trying to kind of lash out against the toxic fans or haters, where it's like you're saying this stuff, it's like you're trying to deliberately make yourself seem ridiculous and sabotage your own work. And it's like it's almost so ridiculous. It's like it can't be sincere necessarily. It's like it's almost like deliberate. But yeah, there is something to be said. I think it's easier to get views. It's easier to get hate watchers than love watchers.
It's true.
And the thing is that people who work for, say, Disney, for, say, their social media team, or who are, say, on maybe work for certain like media sites that may shill for Disney, they may say like, well, like all these YouTubers out here who are criticizing, this content, they're just doing it for the clicks and the hate, hate watching and all that. And it's like, let's say that that's true, but that seems that Disney's doing the same thing and trying to kind of get attention and get hate watch views. That seems to be what is at work.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
It's on a much bigger kind of scale than just a little YouTube channel. That's kind of, so that's how I kind of see She-Hulk. That's how I see, some of the things that were done with the marketing for Kenobi as like, yeah, it's like some of those things, like you're deliberately trying to sabotage goodwill. You're deliberately trying to make people angry. And it's like, it's so ridiculous. There's got to be more to it.
I mean, why else do you think like all these leaks about things get out? Like let's say like the leak script to the Rise of Skywalker and stuff like that. Like, how does this stuff get out, and why does it get out? I mean, you'd think they'd have better security. I mean, because the leaks for the script of the Rise of Skywalker was accurate, and when I heard how it ended, it just made me think, no, this can't be real. And not only that, but Chewbacca's supposed death. The moment that that scene played in the movie, I'm like, no, it's not going that route, is it? Is it really going? Were the leaks really true?
Yeah.
And yeah, at like my stomach just dropped. I'm like, oh no. I hope this isn't going how I think it's going to go. But anyways, how does this stuff, especially since that is the script for the movie, how does that leak out?
And here's
Why?
I'll offer kind of the less conspiratorial kind of take on this too. And I think both these, first of all, I do think it could be possible you have kind of targeted, selected leaking of material to produce, talk.
Yeah.
The other possibility too, if we want to take kind of a less conspiratorial, and once again, I think they could both be true, and I don't know which. The other view is, and here's the thing. Let's pretend that, like, say, Disney legitimately wanted to keep all these storylines, content secret until release. Let's pretend that. The thing is even if they really wanted to do that, that's virtually impossible. It's because they have so many people. Like, to work on one show or one movie requires so many people, not just kind of the people whose names are at the top of the credits, kind of directors, writers, actors, whatever. But you get so many people who kind of who are working on, say, the visual effects. If it's live action, there's so many kind of technical positions there where it's like, in order to work on this project, yeah, you can kind of sequester people, and maybe have only certain people working on certain scenes or whatever, but it's like, that's not economical. And so you're going to have a lot of people beyond kind of the people at the top of the credits list who are aware of what's in the script and what's in the story, and could probably, if they just, walked up, just slipped into someone's dressing room, grab a copy of the script if they wanted, and just release it. And I think what's forgotten is that, it's kind of and one thing I can imagine is, like, I think a lot of people think of, everyone who works on, say, a movie or a show is like hyper woke, of all of one single political mindset and ideology. When it's like, no, because you have, and once again, I am stereotyping, but I'm going to go with it. But the fact is, you have a lot of, I don't know whether I call it blue collar work, but you know what I mean, more practical and technical work that goes on with these productions. And I'm just going to say that people in those positions tend to have a very different view of life than the people, kind of at the top, who are writing, who are making a lot of these big decisions.
Yep.
And once again, not always. You get plenty of, kind of, very kind of, you get plenty of kind of very kind of pro the corporation people in those positions too. But the fact is, you are more likely to have some kind of dissident people, there. Like, I remember reading, kind of about, in the aftermath of kind of the Gina Carano firing, how a lot of just crew members really liked her, and thought it was, a shame that she was let go. It's like, there are a lot of people. I think sometimes people are under the impression that everyone who works for Disney or on Disney projects is of X mindset, when that's not true. A lot of people, there are a lot of people kind of who are working on these things who, if you actually, who, probably may not agree with kind of the direction that they're taking a certain project or show. And I could easily see someone kind of getting disgruntled and just leaking stuff.
Yep.
And that would also explain too why with some of the leaks they're not like perfect leaks. They're kind of fuzzy. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like an exact script that you're getting, but it's kind of loose. It roughly matches up, and that would kind of align much with someone who's not necessarily like a writer. You know what I mean? Someone like that. It
Yeah.
leaking, but say someone who's like, say on the camera crew for all we know, and they just are kind of recounting what they observe, and and they're kind of piecing together with what they heard what stuff might make it into other scenes that they may not necessarily be working on, and so that's how we end up getting the leaks. But once again, I do think that if it came out that Disney themselves or someone in the company, like the company itself, in other words, was kind of strategically leaking things, I also wouldn't be surprised if that was true, because that could, once again, they've got they have some really weird ideas about what is a good marketing strategy. I guess not weird because they're working, I think, in a sense.
Yeah.
At least in their view, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that some companies probably use leaks as a way to sort of get people to talk about their stuff. I used to know some examples, but I can't remember them at the moment.
Yeah,
But
that stuff happens, definitely.
and I mean, I'm just saying, like, either they don't have enough security for certain leaks, such as the full script for a movie that's
Yeah.
supposed to not be leaked. They either got poor security or they really wanted it out there. But I think it's more for something such as that. I think it's more of a just insecurities, uh, or they had no security. That rather, but
Yeah, and it's like ultimately it kind of, even if they shelled out more money for security, like say if this is just a security issue, even if they shelled out more money for security, it's like you're ultimately kind of, one of the security people could leak stuff. You know what I mean? Like
sure enough,
um it's like that's the thing. It's like if I were writing for some big show or movie like that, it's like I would just accept that it's very likely my project could be leaked. and I would write it accordingly so that whatever is leaked does not enrage people.
exactly. See, that also just brings another thought to my head, though. Like when it comes to writing movies and shows nowadays, what do they teach these people? Because I've seen so many different things as of like how they write specific characters or whatever, and it doesn't feel like it either feels like it's not in their character for them to do something, or they're writing the show itself in such a very poorly paced or just poorly, a poor story plot, all that kind of stuff. They it's all poorly done. It feels like nowadays. Like what goes for writing anymore? What do they teach these people? Because there's
Yeah.
so many of these writers that come out and they're very vocal about what they believe, especially when it comes to their writing. They're very vocal about their writing not being bad. It's just certain groups of people hating on it or something like that. Like, do they teach them that you're always a good writer? Or no, are they like the parent that tells their child, no matter what the child does, whether it's right or wrong, that it's okay, child, you're amazing. If you make a mistake, you're still amazing. I'm not going to tell you what you did wrong, but you're amazing. That kind of parent. Is that what they are nowadays? Uh, just those overly pampering parents teaching these classes or whatever nowadays. I don't understand it because some people don't seem like they know how to write. And
Yeah.
it's very bad, especially for the entertainment industry, where you got to be at least, decent to make something nice that people will enjoy. I mean, they also seem like they have like no obligation to the people they're writing it to, which I think in a way it's true, but at the same time, if you know it's going to be a product put out there for people, and you want people to like it, then you do need to keep the people in consideration. Um, I think, if I remember right, I think it was Ryan Johnson or somebody that was working on The Last Jedi said that they didn't write it for the fans; they wrote it for themselves, and that right there is a red flag. They're already putting out there like, "Hey, we didn't write this for you guys; we wrote it for us, so we'll like it. It's a gamble whether you will, though." And you know, that's already like I said, a red flag, and they have there's more and more people like this with that mentality that they write it for themselves. And and I get that, because art is all about expressing yourself and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But like I mentioned, you're putting this out there to be bought or watched by people. Um and it's already part of an established universe. Sometimes it don't even have to be that. It could just be a one-off thing, but it could be bad. I mean, that's sort of an Star Wars Episode 4 is an example of that. It was a one-off thing, and nobody had done anything like that before back in the day. So it was a gamble whether it was going to be good or bad, and that's why they wrote it in the way they did, to be a one-off. Like, the movie itself could have worked as just a single movie. It wasn't made to have a trilogy, an entire trilogy, or to be part of an entire trilogy, but it ended up becoming one because it was written well and it was amazing, uh, especially for its time. Nowadays, they write these things that from the beginning, and they expect everybody to like it, but it's not always going to be that's not always going to be the case. And then they complain about the people that dislike it and call them names and do whatever. Some people have legitimate concerns. If you can't um, acknowledge those legit concerns, then that just shows that you have an ego when it comes to your writing, and that you can't do anything wrong, but the people that are criticizing can. That's the mentality of the writers nowadays, and I don't like that.
Yeah, and like two things. Like first, oh darn it, did I forget? First, it was going to be such a profound point. Oh, this is going to bother me. Okay, so first is a devil's advocate point. So the response you might hear to your very good points is like, well, you can't please everyone. So why don't you just first focus on pleasing yourself as a writer? To that, however, I would say, um, first, and actually this was going to be my second point, but I'll just integrate into this first overall point. So I'm just doing one point. But first,
Okay.
in my view, the rules for writing something writing something original versus writing something for kind of an already established fictional universe are different. If you're inventing and writing your own stuff, anything goes. You can write for yourself. And if people happen to like it and want to kind of join you along for the ride, then all the better. And if they don't, then they don't. But, when you're writing kind of when you are, however, writing for an established fictional universe, that's when in my view death of the author kicks in. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of interesting to me where I know some people will talk about kind of the death of the author concept kind of pejoratively, as in like, oh, it's just crazy postmodern relativism, death of the author. It's like, although I think it's a very I think it's I think it's like an important and death of the author, obviously, in like literary criticism, it's more of a kind of a descriptive term, but I think it almost should be kind of like a prescription for working with um, established content. Once kind of once, say, the original author creates something and the audience gloms onto it and it kind of takes a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been there, sitting there percolating for some time. At that point, it's not just that the author is kind of, in a sense, died because it's been adopted by the audience.
Yeah.
It's because it's like, for instance, Star Wars, a lot of what that is what audiences for decades have kind of, this kind of lore and memes and stuff that we've kind of built around it, and interpretations and all that. A lot of that's kind of, it's like George Lucas's creation, but it's also kind of the audience's creation too. And but the problem is then when you get someone like Rian Johnson or J.J. Abrams or whoever coming in, they need to acknowledge, like, yes, George Lucas is no longer working on Star Wars. He made the thing. He released it out into the wild. It's not his. The bird's flown. It's not his. He can't hold it anymore. It's not his. But also, it's not yours either. You already coming to this kind of established universe. You need to kind of die yourself as an author before you can interact with this, because it's the property now of the audience. And what count, and determining kind of at what stage kind of a fiction becomes kind of where the author kind of becomes dead and then it just is owned by the audience, and where, that's obviously very subjective, and different people have different views on what that is. But I think Star Wars is definitely one of those fictional universes where it's like it's owned by the audience at this point. And so yes, they do matter now. It's, and I think and it's interesting to me sometimes I've seen kind of the angle taken, like people kind of justify doing something ridiculous with Star Wars, by saying, well, it's what George Lucas would have wanted, or if it's what he would have done, or he intended it to be this way. I like, and this is maybe where I differ from a lot of kind of like people who I tend to generally agree with. What George Lucas thought, thought about Star Wars, it doesn't matter anymore. But what does matter now is what kind of the audience that's here now, what all of us think that he thought about Star Wars and valued about, that is what matters at this point. So it's owned by the community now. And so now you need to kind of, you're going to come in, you can't just write for you. If you were I get that when George Lucas did Star Wars originally, he was probably just writing for himself, but that time has passed now. This kind of creature is in a different stage of metamorphosis now. He literally does not own it, but also he also just metaphysically no longer owns it. And so, I think kind of the death of the author thing, it's something that should be it should be respected if you're a writer coming in to already established stuff. So so the other thing I was going to say is that no, you can't please everyone, but I don't think that should be an excuse to just not try and please anyone at all. You should try and please more people than yourself. So you should try to please more than one person. And, it actually reminds me of, it's like actually why when I did months ago, like this kind of tweet thread about things that edits like that I would make to the sequels. And
I love those.
And one of the things I prefaced with is like, I think I could write a version of them that 80% of like people, or some number like that, some percentage like that, would be cool with. And that's the thing
Mhm.
is that you can, I think you can realistically accept as a writer that not everyone is going to like what you do. There will be some people that you can never please, but it's like that's not an excuse to at least try and aim to make most people happy, you know?
Mhm.
And that's the thing. I feel like that's kind of sometimes the you can't please everyone, or some people will always be perennially unhappy with what you do. It's just kind of a cheap way out.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I had something too just a minute ago, and I completely lost it. Well, anyways, so I guess in regards to writing, uh, dang it, I lost that too. Gosh,
Let's
what is
get it
wrong with me
back.
today? Let's do it. Let's get it back. Um, well, okay. So in regards to all that, I just feel like a lot of them go in with the mentality they want to please themselves, which I think is a little, a little bit selfish, not like incredibly selfish. I mean, as an artist, you want to do something for yourself, and I like I said earlier, uh, you gotta also think about the people you're putting it out there for. And actually, you made it a little more clear about, if it's a one-off thing, or something brand new, anything about, anything goes. So it will form its own audience for people that enjoy that sort of thing, whatever they put into that before, that's what they'll enjoy. That's the difference, though, when you come into a franchise that you didn't create. Like, you got to sort of put yourself aside. You can add a few things in that you would have liked, but you got to also think, like, oh, I remember now exactly what I was going to say. I'll bring it up in a second. Um, but you also got to think, will this work? Because um, part of the well, basically what I was going to bring up earlier, it'll sort of come into this. This also is a reason, like, why you get people that um truly know and enjoy the franchise that has been going. That's why you get those people to do the writing for these types of situations. Um, you don't just go grab some random person that doesn't know anything about it and be like, "Hey, write for this," and expect it to go good. Like, that's why you get writers that, whether they're super experienced or not, but that's why you get them that are fans of the product rather than just noobs that don't know anything about it. Which is also part of the reason why we're in a situation that we're in now, because some of these people have either their own agendas or they have their own ideas for how this can go to suit them, rather than stay true to the source material itself. Usually, the people that are actually fans of whatever it is they're writing for, especially if it's for a established franchise such as Star Wars, usually those people will probably make something that's a little more favorable to the audience, as opposed to some new writer that has their own ideas and claims to be a fan of it only because now that they're part of it.
Right.
Like, as an example, there was an interview with the I guess dwarf queen lady from Rings of Power, the new Amazon show. Which, by the way, have you heard of that?
I've definitely heard of that. And yeah. Yeah.
I'm. I don't look. I don't want to get into that one just yet because we're still somewhat stuck on She-Hulk and we've not gotten back to She-Hulk yet. But
I'm gonna say like Jeff Bezos really wants to monetize the watching
yeah,
like phenomenon.
yeah. So you know what? I'll bring up Rings of Power. I've not watched anything on it. I don't know if it's out yet, but what I've seen from the clips and trailers, I'm not too enthusiastic. Um, like we'll use that as an example. So
I've
having
I've so much
fans,
to say on that. Yeah.
like, you can ask my sister what she thinks of it from what little she's seen. Like she is a diehard fan of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, like diehard. She has the extended editions. She loves them to death. Okay,
Oh
if she
wow.
watched this show, she's already seen some of the clips for it. I think she is not a fan, and this is somebody that loves Tolkien's work. Okay, so if the diehard fan like her doesn't think anything about expanding this universe that she loves so much looks interesting, then there's got to be something wrong with the universe itself that they're trying to create. Anyways, one of the interviews that I watched was with the lady that plays the dwarf queen, which I'll go ahead and tell you in lore, female dwarves have facial hair. They're just
Yep.
very hairy in general. And the fact that she's not ticks me off. And I'm not even a diehard fan of Lord of the Rings. I love it, but I very much dislike it when they take those tiny details and just throw them out, because that's in the original source material. And they even stated it, in the movies. Like, I think I can't remember exactly how the scene went down, but I think somebody pointed out that, like, who's the other guy? Because I think they were showing a picture of, I can't remember who it was, but one of the dwarves and their wife, and he says, "That's my wife," and then we're all like, "What?" Because facial hair, and they mentioned a few times, I think, throughout Lord of the Rings that female dwarves are very hairy. Okay, just like male dwarves, they're not beautiful, like what we would consider, I guess, beautiful by our standards, but by dwarf standards, that would be beautiful to them. Anyways, small little thing that takes me off. But
And what's funny about that is
mhm.
that I would have thought that, of all of the just stuff in Tolkien's universe, bearded dwarf women would have been the most easy thing to bring into the show to kind of, especially to package, for a very, like, if you wanted to do like a very woke take on Tolkien, the one thing that you would think they'd keep is the bearded dwarf women. Like, that's what's so funny. It's like they're very regressive, frankly, and not, yeah.
I know. I thought the same thing. I'm like, out of all the things you could have kept to make it more progressive in your standards, you take it out.
It's like, and it's things like that where I'm like, are they just that's the thing where it's like, I think Jeff Bezos, I think he wants to monetize some hate views, like that,
I really think
because
so too.
it's like you're deliberately sabotaging your show with some of these interviews that these people are giving and some of the marketing that just, yeah. Also,
Okay,
I have
but
oh yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. What? No, go ahead.
I forgot.
Also, what?
I forgot what it was I was going to say, so no
Oh,
worries.
well, poo. I'm sorry. Well, anyways, back to the interview. So she mentions that she is now, like her words, "I am now a fan." This is going back to, you got to be a fan before you work on it. Okay. She's one of those people that only become a fan because they're a part of it and they have some sort of say in how it's made. They're not a fan of it beforehand because they didn't have any part of it. They have no say in what's going on. So it's not to what they would say is their, what they would enjoy. The only reason they like it now is because they are part of what makes the story progress. So you really need to get people that are like fans of the work and actually willing to make it fit within the universe.
It's like, are you so self-hating that you're going to go and work on something that you're not a fan of? I mean, granted, if you're paid enough, then I guess then it doesn't matter. But like, yeah, how much I remember, like, they sunk a lot of money into this
It looks like
show.
it's an expensive production.
Well, it's one of those things where I've heard like it is an expensive production. I've seen sometimes like some of these details with costuming, and I get there's been people arguing back and forth whether it's cheap looking, party store looking or not. I lean towards it's some of the stuff's party store
I
looking.
did see some of those images. I did see some of those. Now that I think about it, I do agree with that.
And like other, it's like, and it's once again, it's like I think it's like selective, like it's like they're pouring money into it, but they're not necessarily kind of checking up on how well that money's being spent. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, but yeah, it's interesting, and I have a confession to make. I actually have. I think. I think I have seen all of the Fellowship of the Ring, maybe, but I think that's it. I haven't seen the full Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Really, you really should.
Yeah, I know.
You
I
really
really
should.
should. Maybe that's what I'll do with all the spare time I have. But
There you go.
yeah,
Figured out
so
something
maybe I
for
should
you
do
after
that. But
all.
yeah, I, I haven't seen all of those movies, and actually, here's a funny story. So, I think part of the reason for it and why that, like, in my family, we like play the Star Wars movies and things like that over and over. Um,
Hmm.
we didn't have, like Lord of the Rings or anything like that. And the reason for that, I think, and my father's kind of said this, he said that, he basically is, I think and I kind of am too, he's kind of grossed out by like sword wounds and deaths,
Oh,
like
okay.
sword killings as opposed to like guns or lightsaber killings, which are generally tidier and
Yeah.
less, they're not as juicy. like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah.
Understandable.
So that, and it's like, so yeah, that's probably been part of the reason. But yeah, I've read the books, but I have not watched all the movies. But obviously, from what I know about the fan base and whatever, it's like it's, oh, this is gonna be so interesting watching kind of the fallout of this. And once again, it's like this self-sabotaging marketing and really bad faith marketing and kind of
Hmm.
engagement with people. I've uh, I've tweeted this multiple times in different ways, but a little rant. One thing that drives me insane is kind of when I see people reacting to the criticism of Rings of Power, like kind of people reacting to criticism of Rings of Power saying, well, those people are like mad at diversity, or they're a bunch of ists, or they're some kind of
Yep.
criticism like that. They're a bunch of bigots or whatever. I've said this multiple times. I'll say it again. If I had the money, I could produce basically once again, I haven't seen them all, but from what I know about it, I could produce like a Peter Jackson style Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I can make it exactly like those films. The only difference being the entire cast, it would all be non-white people. That would be the only difference. I could do a complete, I could
Hmm.
do a complete non-white Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it would be completely faithful to the books, just like those movies were, from what I've heard.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. It's like, if you think that people are criticizing Rings of Power because they're a bunch of ists, no, I could get those same people who are criticizing Rings of Power. They would totally watch my kind of my movies over the very comparatively lily white Rings of Power.
Hmm.
It's not about that. Ultimately, it's not about that. It's kind of that what's the problem that people have with the show is the clear kind of disdain that the people working on it have exhibited for the source material and
Hmm.
for fans who have concerns about that. And just getting the most obvious things, like the dwarf women sans beards, getting that wrong, getting very obvious kind of everyone knows that in Tolkien's world the dwarf women have beards, like that everyone knows that, and you got that
Hmm.
wrong. How,
Yep.
if you can't even get that right, how are you gonna how are you gonna get some of the other things right? um
Exactly.
so yeah, it's just like, and that's the thing. So I'm like, just as for the sake of thought experiment, it's not about you know it's not about the who's in the roles. Like I said, I could do kind of that version of those movies, and people would just and would love that, and much more than what Amazon's putting out. It's all about kind of the what's people are kind of seeing going on behind the scenes or in marketing that's giving people a lot of red flags.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's like they know that too. And so it's like to just say that people, that people who are upset with this are just bad people. It's like that is such a bad faith kind of
It really is.
argument to make.
Like, people should be willing to embrace the fact that there may just be something wrong with what they made rather than it's all the people watching its fault.
Yep.
Um, like, I mean, they have to make. Okay, so when going back to those interviews, there's one other thing I noticed. There was a pattern. Um, every single one of the interviews that I watched with the woman playing the dwarf, she made sure to mention 100 times that she was the first female dwarf, black or otherwise. She not every time she mentioned she was black, but I'm pretty positive that she did a few times. But I know for a fact that she constantly gloated about being the first female black dwarf. And they also gloated about having a black elf, which I don't think should be canon because I now I'm not as hardcore as a fan as my sister, so she may be able to tell me if I'm wrong. But as far as I know, elves were supposed to be very light and fair skinned. And that's not saying that a black person can't play an elf. I could be completely wrong. But if they're going to turn a character or add a character of color in there, if it doesn't fit within the restrictions for each of these races, don't do it. Like, if they're supposed to be fair skinned elves, uh, let them be fair skinned. Create a character that is of color to be in the show. You don't have to break the rules and create a character within that race of people. Well, it's almost like making a tall dwarf that is completely hairless and beautiful, like by our standards. That
Right.
you can't do that and call it a dwarf.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like it's frustrating, unfortunately, kind of with the kind of with the current like cultural climate. It's like people can't have like sane discussions of these things without kind of erupting into you know you're just an evil person for having this view, and
Mm-hmm.
and, and it's a tricky one because at least, and once again, this is just my view on kind of race and casting. Whether you're doing it for like theater, for film, or whatever. To me, I'm probably one of these. Once again, I've got like kind of a fringe minority view where I generally am okay with cast. I'm okay in principle with casting any person of any race into any role. That said, I think unless you have a unless you have stories where the race of kind of the appearance, and take this beyond race, just talk about appearance, to extend to sex and other factors, where the appearance of the character matters to the story. Like that's an important story element, and there's it's hard to tell that story without having someone cast in that character's role that looks a certain way. Like for instance, if you're you know if you're like kind of trying to write a story about, say, like the civil rights movement in the 60s, you're going to it's going to look really strange, if you kind of race swap certain characters, in that story. It's going to look really strange. That said, there are other stories, like we'll talk about Shakespeare, for instance. Even though he clearly wrote those stories, living in a certain culture at a certain time, and they were envisioned to be, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. You can take a wild guess what race the Prince of Denmark would be, back then.
Of course.
But that said, it's kind of like that death of the author thing. Those stories have since. There's actually, this is a useful legal term. So in trademark law, there's this term we talk about when the trademark is like genericized. And so it's like, like Band-Aids, for instance. It's like, it's become just it's kind of become attached from the original thing it signified, and just and it's just everyone's kind of adopted and uses Band-Aid to describe a Band-Aid. So what do you use? Oh, a bandage, I guess. But
yeah,
that sounds so weird. It's like
it really does.
Band-Aid. So there are certain things, like on the extreme end, like I would consider Shakespeare's plays generally. They've genericized, where it's like it's very much normal, and like it's not just that it's done, but audiences kind of just accept it and go with it, where you can have all kinds of race and gender swaps in Shakespeare plays. And even in ones like Othello, which is where kind of the race of the characters is it's pertinent to the storyline. Like I've heard of variants where they'll have like a white man be Othello and have everyone else in the cast be black, and you get like really interesting interpretations based off that. So you have on the one end stories where they've been kind of percolating so long that they've kind of taken a life of their own. They've genericized, and people they don't really see Hamlet, say, as the Prince of Denmark. They just see Hamlet as kind of more of this universal human archetypal character and they've had all kinds of people play Hamlet. At the other end, you have stories that are either very of a certain time and place and culture, or they are relating events in a certain time or place or culture. And so that's a little bit harder to make kind of appearance swaps with those characters in those kinds of stories. Tolkien's works, I feel, at least to me, and once again, people can, have different views on this, are kind of in the middle, where they've been around, kind of in popular culture in different forms enough that I can see how, to some extent, some of those characters have kind of begun to genericize in a sense, and to be kind of more archetypes for heroism and so forth. But at the same time, you still have they're very heavily of a certain time, place, and culture too. It's like, I think, for people who are like, why would people be a little, I'm personally okay with appearance swaps with Tolkien characters, but I can also understand why people wouldn't be. It's the same reason where it's like, I think it's like, if you think that someone who's upset with appearance swaps in Tolkien, if you think that they're a bad person for being upset about that, well, think about it this way. It's like, how would you, if you take some other, if you take some other story from the folklore of another culture, like, like say, take some, like say if someone does, like novelizes some like folklore from West Africa, and and say if like Amazon buys that novelization and decides to cast it all with white European cast to play those characters. It's like, you'd understand if you had, audiences being like, there's something a little that's a little weird. Like, why couldn't you? There's something a little bit inauthentic about that. So I think. Anyways, I forget where I was going with that, but the point is like it's Tolkien's works, I feel, are kind of in this muddy sort of middle area for me about whether they've, I think the more genericized a story is, I think the easier it is to appearance swap characters. But I don't know if Tolkien's works have kind of reached that. They're not like Shakespeare. They kind of are, in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in terms of their popularity now, they've been circulating.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're quite there, or if they ever will be there. If that, But yeah, it's kind of one of those things. And so you're gonna just find people who are both okay with appearance swaps and who are not. And I think those are both legitimate positions to have. What's not a legitimate position to have is to say that someone who's, who has issues with the show is an evil person. That is not a legitimate view to have.
No. It's not exactly that I have an issue with, them adding characters in. I just want it to be as accurate to the universe as possible.
Yeah.
So if they do make a black elf, they better, I think they ought to give an explanation, instead of just put them in there and be like, oh, it's totally normal. Like, and then again, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. If you ever find out that I'm wrong, please correct me, because I don't want to sound racist. I really don't.
I'm in no place to correct, because first of all, it's been a while since I've read the books, and so I'll leave it to the like Tolkienists or whatever, the people who know more about that too.
Yeah.
But but that's the thing, is that
the same thing.
Yeah,
honestly.
But that's the thing. It's like I kind of I just think what bothers me kind of seeing that is just clearly the disdain that people who are working on it have for the audiences, for people who love the books, just saying, oh, well, finally now I'm a fan. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And very obvious things where it's like that they've gotten wrong. But yeah, it will be so interesting and probably amusing to see what comes out of all this.
I mean, honestly, they shouldn't have gotten anybody other than Peter Jackson. Like, if he was ever willing to work on it again, I'd say they shouldn't have got anybody but him to work on it. That's my personal opinion. I mean, if you're going to try to continue the cinematic universe that he created, that's based off the books, they really needed to have Peter Jackson do it. That's my personal opinion, though. I love Peter Jackson's work. He's one of my favorite directors I've ever seen. So, I mean, I may be slightly biased in that case, but like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody,
you're not wrong.
Because like I have no like I'll use Commissioner Gordon in the Batman, the new movie. Use him as an example. Most of the time he's portrayed as a white man, which is that's been the standard for a while. he's black in this movie, and some people, a small amount of people, before the movie came out, complained that they had race swapped him. Which, with me, I didn't exactly have an issue with that. I did find it that it was a little weird at first. I'm like, he's not usually black, but okay, we'll go with it. And when I watched the movie, his character is amazing. I love this version of Commissioner Gordon, which at first he's not a commissioner. If I'm not mistaken, he's not a commissioner at the beginning of the movie. I could be completely wrong about that. I didn't watch the movie in a little bit. There's so many Batman movies, I might be getting them all mixed up. But I do know this: his character was amazing, and I wouldn't want anybody else to portray this version of the character than the man that did. So it can work. Race swapping can work. It has to be done right. It can't be done like, oh, I'm black and you better know this, okay? And they do that for the rest of the movie, like, hey, make sure you know I'm black, okay? And throw out all these random stereotypes that people apparently associate with black people. Be like, the police better not attack
I remember
me.
reading.
I'm black.
You reminded me of like once again I don't follow this stuff closely, but I remember seeing the headline like with the whole like there's like some like race swapped Thor kind of thing where
Oh yeah,
they and the writer for that, like I guess he thought he was doing something very progressive and then ended up having to apologize for it because he just ended up like kind of throwing in all these stereotypes in doing the race swap and like
Yep.
oh wow.
That's when it doesn't work. It works if you do it right and you don't focus on their race and try to make sure you know that they're this race. Like if you can't tell by the looks of them, add in a bunch of stereotypes that people apparently associate with them and pretend like you're either breaking these stereotypes or just make it worse. Somehow make the stereotypes seem worse. I don't know.
On a related note, it sounds like She-Hulk is basically a sex swapped Hulk because she's apparently better than him at everything.
I was about to go into that. Yeah, that's one of the clips that made me very wary about it. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's take a time machine. Let's go back to 2000 and what was it, 12 when the Avengers movie came out. So that was the first time I was ever introduced to the Hulk in the live action universe. I didn't see the live action Hulk, the first one that didn't have what was his name? How in the world do I forget his name? The guy playing Hulk now. What's his name? Mark Ruffalo. Why did I told you I've not been with it. I think my memory has been affected by COVID. Mark Ruffalo. Okay, I didn't see the one that wasn't starring Mark Ruffalo, okay? I don't even think I own the movie. Then again, I might own it. I just haven't watched it. Either way, I own a lot of movies, just saying. But that's a side note. Anyways, when I watched that, and that movie is what got me into the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the first place. So I watch it in any of the movies that the Hulk shows up in, and I see his struggle, to become or to be able to control the Hulk. Actually, we get a bit of a story arc with Ragnarok where the Hulk is just completely taken over Mark Ruffalo or Bruce Banner's body. And, then all of a sudden he's no longer in complete control. And it's like you get this story arc where, they are becoming two separate beings. And Bruce Banner is trying to control that. And, by Endgame, he has complete control over his Hulk self and his human self and has become the current version of what we know as Smart Hulk, the Bruce Banner, just big and green. So you get all this. And I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, really, but you get
no, you're doing
a
good job.
Oh, okay, good. You get all this from, I can't remember when the original Hulk movie came out, but we'll say from that point when that original one came out, all the way up to Endgame is him struggling to control, his control himself and his anger. And then we got She-Hulk here, who is apparently infinitely better than he is. That's her words, at controlling her anger because she happens to just get catcalled or something like that when he's constantly being like hunted down because he's a menace to society. He's constantly being hunted down. He's had so many tragedies happen in front of him. He lost Natasha Romanoff, which is somebody he loved, and then we have his cousin who gets catcalled, thinks that she's going to get murdered all the time somehow, and then some men, her words, constantly telling her how to do her job. I mean, it wouldn't be like that if the writers didn't write it that way, of course. But if that's the only reason why she's better at controlling it than he is, then that's some very lazy writing because they didn't want to give her an actual struggle. They wanted to make her just better and in every single way, and that we've already proven, or no, we've had one franchise prove already how making a character a Mary Sue from beginning to end doesn't always go well for that character. It makes them a boring character, right? Anyways, but that's they're pulling a Ray with She-Hulk, in my opinion, except a little bit worse. Like, I can deal with Ray. Ray, I mean, for the most part, isn't an unlikable character. They just gave her no struggle to make, and they made her infinitely good at everything. Like, right
that's the
back.
thing. It's a lot of, like, I think issues with Ray's characterization are they're not like glaring. It's more kind of subtle. Like, if I were going to rewrite and change, like, it's like they'd be subtle changes. Whereas it's like, at least my impression from the marketing for She-Hulk, it's glaringly like women are better than men, and it's just very explicitly bad.
See, the thing is, and I'll acknowledge this myself, there are some women that are better than men at things. And,
Yes.
there are some women that are much better to be around than there are men, because I know some men in my life that, like, I absolutely do not want to be around, which that also goes for some women too. I mean, it's not like an exclusive thing to gender. By the way, hello there, Chrono.
Hi.
Oh,
Yay, he joined us.
we're talking about how women are better than men.
You know,
Yes.
it's actually really funny because I was thinking about the same thing. Since we didn't have a topic, I was like, why don't we talk about She-Hulk?
Yeah, we sort of well, we didn't exactly start off the stream with it, but like, about 20 minutes in, we were like, let's start on She-Hulk. We also got into Rings of Power a little bit, which you might know a little bit about that too.
Sorry, come again? I didn't hear that.
Oh, sorry. I said we got into She-Hulk, and then we also got into Rings of Power a little bit. You probably know a little bit about that too, don't you?
Oh yeah, I've been following the whole debacle of that show. Yeah, what specifically are you trying to get to? The racism,
Well-
the sexism, the figureism.
Well, okay. So, right now, at this very moment, we're talking about how, She-Hulk has sort of been written to where men bad, women good kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I was playing devil's advocate for a second, saying that there are some women that, and I'm not saying some as in like there's not that many. I'm just saying there are women that are better than men at things, which is true. I mean, you can't. I mean, especially Commander Tano here. I mean, she's the Mary Sue of the Force Collective. She's already proven that. But there are some that aren't in this stream that aren't Mary Sue's like she is, but they are still better than some men. Like I was saying, I know some men in my life that I would rather never talk to again. And that also goes for women. It's not gender exclusive. I don't know the exact statistics. If there was a way I can get statistics on which gender is better, I would statistically, I would go by that. But the thing is, we don't have that. We don't know everybody in the world. We can't just go around and say one gender is better than the other. What happened to equality? I think that
Yeah,
men and women are equal, but not everybody feels that way. And I mean, some people rightfully so, because there are some people, men and or women, that harass the other gender, and that forms that other person's opinion about
yeah,
that specific gender. Because some people like to generalize and put everybody into a group. And these shows and movies nowadays feed that mentality rather than try to break that and say it's not all of this person, this group, or all of that group, which is
yeah. I
also
agree.
which is also why racism existed in the first place. With it ain't even just with black people. Uh, like it existed for like Native Americans back in the day, and maybe even still does. But because they are what they are, maybe because there was a specific group of them that was more violent than the others. And I'm talking about Native Americans, and I'm not 100% like I probably ain't 100% accurate on how that stuff went down back in the day, but I know that there were some tribes that were probably more violent than others. But those particular tribes is what shaped the view for these people back then of what they were. And the
Yeah,
same goes for, like, I'll use myself as an example. I had some very bad experiences with dogs when I was really young. So from that point on, I treated every dog as if it was that kind of dog that would just go out and try to attack me or hurt, or just do anything in its power to hurt me in general. I've
yeah,
grown out of that because I realized it's not all of them. It's just that one that did it. So when I talk about the entertainment industry nowadays trying to feed the mentality that all of this gender or race is either really good or really bad, it's a negative mentality to be feeding. You should try to be putting out that we're equal, not that one's better than the other.
yeah. Well, I think that the main issue with that is the fact that uh, pop culture is there's a reason we call this the culture war. Pop culture is the perfect vehicle to instill any kind of sentiment towards anything into the population, because most of the population will take whatever they watch on TV or media or whatever as truth. They don't really question much. So if you present to them a show, a newscast, whatever you put on the screen for them to watch, and then they consume this product, and they are told by these people on the screen that this race is doing this and they should be hated for, or these people with this Republican or Democrat or whatever party is doing this or that. When you do that, you're conditioning people to think that way. And this is the reason all of these people have hijacked entertainment to be able to put this out there. I mean, She-Hulk is supposed to be trying to battle sexism. Sexism has been battled for ages, and a lot of ground has been won in the equal opportunity department. Because
Mm-hmm.
the real reason, it was never about men thinking that women are inferior to them. That was a false narrative created to control that specific demographic, because of course there was a change. I mean, you got to consider women used to be exclusively considered as household material. A woman who couldn't take care of her house, she doesn't matter. She doesn't exist. And the moment they started going into the workforce and proving that they could achieve greater things in certain fields than men, of course the men in power, because that's the point. It's not men felt threatened, it's men in power did. And they
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a stream that goes from the top downwards. They infected this mentality into younger men, because we see
Yep.
in movies that the young men at the universities and fraternities were they were pushed to treat women as trophies. Like, how many women are you dating? And you have them doing whatever you want, and then you're them man and you're celebrated. But this was not because society in general was toxic. Men were toxic towards women. It was a narrative, and it was very effective because back then there was no internet. So whatever any figure in power said, you would take it for granted. Like, yeah, that's the truth. The president said this on whatever presentation he did. Oh, it must be the truth. The FBI says this. The police says this. Now it's not so much because we have this all this access to different thoughts from around the world, and we can talk about it like we are right now, and we get different opinions, and we think more for ourselves. But the thing is, their narrative is there precisely as you said to divide us, because that is the bottom line of everything. The people in power want the everyday men and women divided, either by race, sex, gender, beliefs, whatever. It's super effective to have us divided by whatever, because if we come together as one and we start like, you know how the activists go and they put these hashtags about boycotting whatever company that doesn't go woke, that could actually work if people were united. I mean, if they were not a minority and we would like play their game, yeah, you can tear down a corporation, because if no one, and I mean no one, consumes the product, what are you going to do? You're not going to sell anything, and your stock is going to remain in the warehouses, and no income. Companies will eventually die, but that's not going to happen because the differences of opinion are too strong, and that's what they want.
I'll offer kind of a white pill to that statement, because I will
That's
say
racist.
like it,
Sorry, go ahead.
so darn it, what was I gonna say?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
It was going to be so profound and so hopeful. Well, not hopeful. It's not hopeful because it's reality. The nice thing is, when you do see entertainment companies doing some of this crazy stuff, is it doesn't actually take a lot of people not watching to tank it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already seeing, and Disney like is kind of probably on the more extreme end with the amount of money that they are throwing into. Disney Plus is a money pit. It was a money pit from year one, but it's even more of a money pit now. I thought I'd read somewhere, and I posted about this some time ago, where I think initially it's like they had invested like say 300. Oh, by the way, I've got dogs. I'm dog sitting, so no. Shh. So if you hear random growling and snarling, that's what's happening. But
Okay.
so yeah, year one, I think like Disney invested like 300 million, and once again, I may be getting inaccurate numbers. You can check me, but like 300 million roughly into Disney Plus, like just pouring into content for it. And obviously, when you're doing the first year, if you're going to do a new streaming service and you're going to have original content for it, and it's the first year, you're going to be at a lot, you're going to be in the red the first year.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting. The idea is you're kind of pouring in money into this initial investment, and you're going to get a return on your investment down the road. The thing is, though, is it seems to be like more mature streaming services like Netflix, for instance, are discovering that doesn't work. Streaming services, they're not like an investment, say in the stock market, where you put money in and you will, if you give it a few years, you will make money from that. You know, if you have a nice diversified portfolio, you'll get a good return on your investment eventually. It's not investing in a streaming service. like as a business, it's not like investing in the stock market. It's more like investing in real estate, where it's a money pit. You buy this house, you pay a whole bunch of money for this house, and and it ends up getting kind of, and what you've made that initial kind of, you've invested the money to buy the house, but then you gotta pay more money to maintain the house, and
Mm-hmm.
and and repairs, and there are some, in some cases, where real estate ends up being a good investment, but often streaming services are like that house that seems to keep needing, that's more of a money pit than a thriving business.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, I think currently, like that, maybe it was this past year that they Disney put in, like, went from 300 million to a billion sunk into Disney Plus content. They've,
Right.
to more than triple your expenses. And I forget what their revenues were, but it was only like a fraction increase. It isn't aligning with. They're not getting as much as they should back for what they've put in. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
and that problem's probably going to get worse unless unless Disney ends up in some kind of, like, the other thing that's been so interesting to follow, and this is probably a whole different stream, the whole kind of Warner Brothers situation and all
Oh
the
yes.
kind of, that's been
Oh, Saslab. Yes.
oh yeah, that's been so entertaining, and it's a good, just like, kind of run a profitable entertainment company 101 course you can get in watching all of some of the goings on. But that's the thing, unless they end up in kind of a Warner Brothers situation where someone just comes in kind of and just is willing to make some cuts and trim the fat away from, and keep the things that actually are that's not going to happen, I don't think, with Disney for a while, if at all. So they are going to keep. I remember very early, like in the kind of the whole cancel Disney Plus movement, where people were like, no, that's not going to make a difference. And I've said, like, you don't need to have everyone cancel a streaming service for it to be hurt. You don't have to have everyone not watch a movie for it to do poorly at the box office. You just
Mm-hmm.
need a significant enough minority of people who aren't consuming. That's it. And
Yep.
and coupled with, enough negative feedback and reviews, that's it. You just need a significant enough minority. I mean, it's honestly, running entertainment companies, it's like it. Oh, sorry, more dog snarling.
It's okay.
Come here, Daisy. She's upset I'm not petting her. All right.
It's okay.
All right. Yeah, Daisy. But so, what was I going to say? Yeah, running an entertainment company, it's kind of like, and it's like finessing all this. It's like U.S. elections, where it's just they're kind of won or lost by a hair. Generally, it's like if you just have a significant enough group of people to kind of flip from one side to another, that's all it takes. It's kind of like that. You just need a significant enough group of people to just check out from Disney Plus, and that's all it takes. Or for them to just not have enough growth. That's the other thing, just not have the growth they've been anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like I definitely seen kind of how Netflix is, and once again, Netflix has been around a lot longer, and once again, they kind of were going with the same expectations. We're going to sink all this money into this content initially, and eventually we'll get into this kind of little happy place where we're profitable, and it's all good, and we're going to have all this growth as a result from our initial investments. And it's like they're not getting that, and they've kind of not only hit a ceiling, but they've now hit kind of a decline. And so it's going to be an interesting question of when Disney hits its ceiling, with its service and goes into that decline, because it's no different from any of these other services. It's just going to be a matter of when. And for certain franchises, they'll each get kind of their own zenith, that ceiling, and kind of enter a decline. I think, I think Star Wars with Kenobi I think it's at it kind of hit. I think that's unless Mandalorian season, I don't know. I think Kenobi is it's all downhill from here. I think Mando season 3. I don't think it can match Mando season 2.
I don't think so either.
Unless they have some crazy marketing stunt or nostalgia bait, I don't know what that would be to get people back in. Or unless, say, they come out and they're like, hey, we're doing the Book of Boba Fett season 2, but this time Boba Fett's actually going to be Boba Fett. Unless they have something like that, to kind of like, if they release a trailer for Book of Boba Fett and it's just nonstop Boba Fett just assassinating people left and right, just that. Unless they have something like that, I don't think that they're going to get any growth going forward. It's just going to be kind of plateau or steady decline at best. And I think the MCU is kind of in that state too. I could see maybe there's something like movie-wise, like maybe like the third and final Guardians movie. I could see that potentially doing well because it's kind of in its own sequestered universe from the rest of MCU stuff. I could kind of see that, but I really don't see that there's much going forward that like seeing how the latest Thor movie. Like, this is a Thor movie and it took a while for it to even get out of the red, from what I've read. So and then combine that where they're doing stuff like She-Hulk, where they're throwing all this money into these shows, and it's like that a lot of people don't like or don't want, and or just don't look good for the amount of money they're throwing into them.
Yep.
But you can say that because that's sexist. To say the CGI in She-Hulk is trash is sexist.
Misogynistic, sexist, probably racist too. Don't know how, but it is.
Yep.
It's one of those. It's all three of those things. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm the whole thing is really terrible because it covers most of the basis of what we're just fans. I mean, it has this feminist agenda that is completely on your nose, and people don't like that. Even women don't like that. I mean, I understand that most intelligent women hate that idea, because that would mean that according to what they consider feminist empowered women in media, they should all be insufferable bitches. And I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I have many examples of strong, empowered women in my family, and none of them are insufferable, and none of them hate men, and none of them are always complaining about what they don't get because of men. I mean, where do they get this stereotype?
That's a great question. See,
I think a lot of this is like self-insert fiction.
Right here with us, so.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I think part of it is like the people, for some reason, the people that they find to write these things are insufferable. And I think these insufferable people also like to just kind of self-insert themselves in fiction. And so that's how we get these insufferable characters.
And this is kind of a requirement for the activist-minded people, that they are all miserable and they are all trying to make you, whoever watches or reads whatever they put out, they want you to feel as miserable as they do. I was checking out some reviews for video games lately, and I was watching a video on Clownfish TV, and Neon was saying that it's funny how most of the woke reviews by woke journals, they always end up the review with, it was a nice game, but I don't think I can enjoy it in this terrible era we are living. And I'm like, yeah, why would you always bring back how terrible the world is? I mean, you're supposed to be
Yeah.
playing a game or watching a movie to lighten up the mood, to feel better so you can keep doing what you're doing next Monday. But no, here come these people that, oh, you know what? I'm miserable, so you should be miserable.
They write about the real world problems that they think we are facing at this very moment, and they shove it down your throat through the entirety of it, and then you get out of the movie or show and you walk out somewhere and you see some of these same issues and like, so am I still watching the show, or did somehow I get put in that universe, or what's going on here? You know, you don't,
It's like,
you don't feel that.
when did, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. You don't feel that sense of escapism, which I've talked
Yeah.
about multiple times in the past about that feeling of escaping reality. Even if it's just for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, it's still an escape. Like, where is that anymore?
Yeah, no, it's like when did I switch the channel to the news? I mean, what happened here? I was watching this movie about space aliens and whatever, and suddenly we're talking about Trump again. I mean, what the hell?
Trump is in this show? Oh my gosh.
Well, according to the people working on Andor, he is.
Oh, is
That
that
was-
is that another oh gosh.
Yeah, you haven't
they-
heard? It's
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, remember that. I remember that.
I didn't hear about that, but now I want to hear it. Tell me, what was this? Tell me.
one of the showrunners said that they're going to be talking about how they're going to make a parallel with the troll or whatever that is for them, because they're comparing the empire's occupation to Trump being in office.
See now, here's the thing. If they I almost if they like if they found a way to like somehow put Trump into that show, like or like some kind of like almost or some depiction of him, and I would almost, it'd be so tacky. I'd almost respect it. It's so blatantly like on the nose. I would almost just kind of be like, you know what, good for you. Hey, like.
Well, maybe
I'd
you should
say-
watch The Boys. They did that in The Boys.
Really?
Yeah, you haven't seen it? None of you?
Nope.
Well, in The Boys, one of the main characters, who is also the main antagonist, he's modeled, and this is from the creator himself. He's modeled after Trump. You're supposed to see Trump in him.
No. Really?
Yeah.
See, what I mean, look, I know Trump ain't perfect and by any means, but what is these people's like obsession with him? I don't get it.
Because they need a bad guy. They need someone to blame for the world's problems and to come here and with their activism, with their cardboard signs and all their tweets and whatever, to tell the world how terrible he is and how they are going to fix it.
I still think
And you probably
also
and you probably saw it with the raid. I mean, the whole raid thing with the FBI, and now they're
Yeah.
facing a terrible backlash. I mean, did that not as a strategy. They did that because they hate him. It's like two 5-year-olds fighting, and they want to get the other one, and they don't know what to do, so they start throwing things to see what sticks. It's like that.
that's true. Like their obsession for Trump has not diminished in the least. I think they are still trying to piggyback off of the popularity of talking about Trump, but it's not working.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because you probably heard about Brian Stelter being fired and his show discontinued from the air.
Oh, I forgot
Yes.
about him.
Well,
Yeah.
well, some of the people that are upset about that are and the people that went at them are saying, yeah, the reason his show probably went under is because when Trump got out of office, he ran out of stuff to talk about. so no one was watching.
And here's the one thing that I find interesting about kind of the reaction to all of this, all of kind of the Warner Brothers Discovery, Zaslav related stuff, and people kind of, people giving themselves a conniption over, like saying that like Zaslav's like this like very staunch right wing Trumper person. Like, I mean, to my knowledge, he's like donated a lot of he's donated a lot of money to Democrat campaigns, but B, it's like I love how it's like I'm guessing he's probably like a basic like for American like left wing kind of corporate dude. It's like
Yeah.
it's like who just wants to make money. And Brian Stelter does not make money.
Yeah.
And so
No.
and so out he goes. And and or things like the Batgirl movie. It's like that clearly was not going to, and even though and people were like, well, why won't they release it because they already made it. It's like you don't realize there are more expenses that go into it's not just making the moving, there are expenses that go into releasing and marketing for it too.
Yeah, and I also love this excuse that they are upset because all these people who work in the movie and they should have the opportunity to see the movie on theaters and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, we feel bad for them, but you're not going to throw away millions and millions of dollars. One of the actors or one of the production crew or the makeup or whatever is crying right now in their office. I mean, that's not how business works. They have to consider how much they would lose if they put the movie out.
Yeah, and it's like it's like these are ultimately it's like they're the people who work at some of these entertainment companies. It's like they seem to think that it's like a charity that like they're owed. It's like no, it's ultimately it's and for better or worse, it's a business. So they're gonna make decisions based on what they think will make money, and that's the thing is like a lot of kind of the crazy kind of more of the kind of insane stuff that you've seen in various franchises. Some people kind of will say, well, it's part of like this like kind of deeper sort of agenda to spread the religion of wokeism or whatever. And it's like I think there are people who are working in those companies who do have that agenda. But I think largely a lot of those like terrible products come out from these studios. It's ultimately because there are people there who are for some reason convinced, and I think have been misled, to think that those things would be profitable. And now they're kind of discovering, oh, they're not making as much money for us as we thought or we would have liked. So let's go with something different. But yeah, I love how it's like, once again, I don't think, at least from what once again, I know so little about, Zaslav or any of this situation, but it's like, I'm guessing if he's like any other kind of, one of these big corporate executives, he's probably just kind of like, like kind of like milk toast left wing. He just wants to make money. And I love how it's like the people who are criticizing him kind of think he's like, like he's got like a KKK hat on or something. It's like, it's like, some of these decisions actually aren't political. Believe it or not, they may feel like it to you, but it's just it's a money making decision. It's like someone finally decided to go look in, kind of go look, check in with the accounting office and see, what kinds of films and shows were bringing in viewers and which weren't. And that's the other thing is Disney's going to have to go through this too at some point. Like I heard something about them thinking that there was talk of them like spinning off, ESPN Plus or whatever that part streaming thing they had. And that's the thing is they may need to start selling off some of these other services they have because how they do their business model with selling these different services and all these bundles, it makes it hard if you're in accounting to kind of tell, okay, are people paying for this service because they want Disney Plus or because they want this thing or that thing, or you know what I mean? So it won't be surprising if we see some of that happening with kind of Disney maybe eventually kind of cutting ties between the different services and these bundles it sells typically, and in addition to raising prices, which that says a whole lot.
Yeah. I want to say I agree, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever heard of Disney like selling a property or anything like that that they own, or even like, well, I mean, as far as cutting ties, maybe. But if they had to sell a property they own, I don't think they'd do it.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's something it's like we've never heard of that happening. You know, and generally what happens, you know, kind of if you in kind of the entertainment world, if things are doing badly, it isn't necessarily that companies will sell off poorly performing properties. It's more of like you get mergers, like you get a bunch of little poorly performing companies, or you know, kind of merging together, and they're combined, hoping their combined IPs will, you know, finally get them out of the red. But yeah, Disney's kind of a weird. They're kind of in a weird thing. I don't. Yeah, I don't think they'd ever sell anything on. Like I don't think they'd sell off Lucasfilm or do anything like that. But they may.
Nope.
People in accounting, what they may do is just be like, hey, instead of selling all these different services, Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, etc., all in one bundle, let's just sell them each separately and see how each of them do individually. Because it's kind of hard to tell, because we're in the red now and we need to figure out what's dragging us, you know, what's kind of the dead weight that's holding us down. They may do something like that. And
I can see that.
yeah, and the thing is too is that Disney does have an advantage over, say, a company like Netflix. So Netflix doesn't have, you know, it doesn't have this kind of several decades long catalog, vault of content of their own that they could just have on that service and sell. Disney does. They've got, you know, I mean, they've got, you know, like nearly 100 years worth of content that they could put on that service they want. They don't need to create anything new to populate that Disney Plus. But
True enough.
the flip side is a lot of us collect physical media, which is a good thing. And so we don't, you know, the average consumer probably doesn't need Disney Plus for that stuff either. You know, we've got like our DVDs, or in some cases still VHS, and we're just kind of, yep.
That's me with Toy Story. I still have the first two on VHS.
Nice.
Right, because the newer versions have been cut from some ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't stand the fourth one. Don't get me started on that one. I'll never stop. Like, if you guys knew how passionate I was about Toy Story, you'd be surprised.
I get it. I haven't actually seen the fourth one, but I know the rough summary of it, and it's
Don't
like,
do it.
yeah, no, I won't. It's like, to me, it's like, no, that just, and it just sounded like a cash grab, and it's like,
And
no,
that's what it felt like.
third one was a good ending for me.
It really was. And like, Chrono will be back, by the way. For me, like, okay, now we've gotten started talking about Toy Story. Okay, so
We've opened that Pandora's box.
Yes, you've opened it. So the way I see it, I feel like they put a lot more love into the third one than the fourth one. I think they just wanted to cash in on the popularity of the third one. Because usually, you know, usually when you continue a series after a long period of time, usually the newest one doesn't do as good. Um, I guess it just depends. But whoever was writing that third one really wanted to make it worth it. In my opinion,
It
it was worth
was.
it. And when I was in that theater years ago watching that, like I almost cried at the end when they were about to be smelted or whatever
Yes.
that fire thing was, where it
Yeah.
was burning all the trash. Yeah, they were about to get incinerated. Um, but and I was like, when Woody grabbed Buzz's hand at that point and that music started playing, I was like, my eyes were tearing up. I was like, oh no, this is going to be the end. Oh no. And then all of a sudden, the three green men show up with the claw. And that
Yes.
feeling, oh my gosh, that feeling made me feel so good. And I was so happy. Oh man. When I talk about Toy Story, you know
They
that I love it.
they do such a good job of kind of balancing that pathos, but also with that humor. And it's like it, even though you would think it's out of place, it isn't. Um, and I just and also the very end when he gives away all of his toys to Bonnie and there's Woody at the bottom of the box and oh my, it's just, what year was
Yeah.
that released?
Oh gosh, hold on. Let me look it up. Toy Story 3 release date.
In the United States of America,
2010.
3 came out June
Okay, yeah, I remember because it's like I was just starting, I probably like in my first year of college then, and that was like that was cool too because the timing, at least for me, I felt was perfect. Because I remember when the first one came out in the '90s and seeing that on
Mhm.
VHS, and then being paralleling Andy's age when that it was so,
Oh man.
that was so good.
Like I was little when I first seen the first two. They came out before I was born. So, of course, well, at least the first one did. I think the second one came out 2 years after I was born. But I've been super into Toy Story ever since I was like really young. That's something that I watched constantly. I went to the Disney store and got Woody and Buzz. I remember going there and doing that. That's because I loved it that much. When that movie was announced and when it finally came out, I went and watched it in theaters because I really wanted to see it. And I came out so happy with how it ended because I felt like it really paid tribute to the characters and it actually did them right. And I mean, I was disappointed that certain characters didn't show up, like Bo Peep, and I'll get to that in a second about what they did with her.
You know, it's the
But
one thing that makes me feel better, not so bad about Toy Story 4.
what?
Lightyear. Lightyear. Oh my goodness.
Did you watch that?
No. But just from what I've heard, and I've once again I've read the Wikipedia summaries, it's like and all of that, and I've read all the reactions and seen plenty of clips and stuff, kind of probably illicitly posted to YouTube. So I feel like I'm aware enough of it, and it's just like the, so much. Well, it's like with the other things we've been discussing. So much irritated me, like about like people explaining why, trying to kind of justify why they didn't have Tim Allen be Buzz in this, and it's like those are the lamest excuses ever. And
I agree.
oh, I can rant on about that, or like saying, well, we wanted to do something different from Tim Allen's Buzz Lightyear because that one was kind of goofy, and I'm like, but that's kind of why it works because what I like about his character in those movies is he is goofy, but it's also there's like a lot of this kind of pathos to it too. That it just that's kind of the point of Toy Story. It they just very cleverly balance it that way. But yeah.
So let me tell you something. So my sister, her husband, and her daughter went to watch that, and my 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 niece is, she loves animated movies. She loves them. Her, of course, Encanto and Enchanted. What did I say that for? Um, Encanto and Frozen are two of her favorite things to watch. Well, I don't know if that says anything about her, but like when they took her to watch Buzz Lightyear or Lightyear, they took her to watch that, and she, I think, fell asleep halfway through it. And see, she's not one that usually likes to fall asleep. She really does not like to sleep. And granted, this is a 3-year-old girl who loves animated movies. Like, you can get her to watch about any animated movie.
That was the vibe I got from reading the summary of the movie. I was like, the problem with the movie, it's not the like crazy, like a crazy woke movie. It's just that it's a milk toast. It's a very milk toast movie, and they're just trying to kind of capitalize on Buzz Lightyear, and think just because that IP is attached to it, that therefore everyone will just love it and flock to it.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, now me and my youngest sister, I got her into Toy Story, and I also got her into the original Buzz Lightyear TV show.
I've not seen that.
You've not seen it?
I
Oh,
haven't.
seriously. Like, you don't even have to watch the show, but at least watch the 1 hour like introduction to the show. The version that's got Tim Allen voicing it. The show doesn't have Tim Allen voicing Buzz Lightyear, but it works. The guy that voices Kronk in like Emperor's New Groove, and he does a lot of other voices. Okay, he's the one that does Buzz Lightyear's voice. So
Okay.
It is sort of off-putting a little bit, but you get used to it. And for the show itself, it's okay. I'm getting off topic, but it's still good. The show is really good. But if you haven't watched it, at least watch the 1 hour introduction to the series. It sort of pulls a Star Wars: The Clone Wars, where you get a movie and then you get the series afterward. That's basically what this does. And Tim Allen voices Buzz Lightyear, though they redid that in a 2-episode format because it is only an hour long. They redid that with the other voice actor as well, I guess, for the show itself. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. It is so good. Like, you need to watch that. If you want something centered around Buzz Lightyear, you really need to watch that because it really gets the character of Buzz Lightyear correct. And also the evil Emperor Zurg isn't Buzz Lightyear at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
You ruined it for so many people.
So many people that care so much. Like I did. I cared. But when I found out that it was just a older Buzz Lightyear being evil Emperor Zurg, I don't even know if he's an emperor at that point. He's just Buzz Lightyear in a mech suit. That disappointed me, like, quite a bit. Like, I watched this video recently comparing the show, the Buzz Lightyear in the show, and then comparing the Buzz Lightyear in the movie and the movie itself to the story of the show. There are some similarities in the character, but the thing is, though, the version of Buzz Lightyear in the Lightyear movie is supposed to somehow become the future villain that's also in the movie. They make him too likable, but they also try to go the route of the original show where they make him arrogant and don't want a partner to help him, throughout missions and stuff like that. If I'm getting everything right. I haven't watched Lightyear because I already know the ending and I'm disappointed. But I watched, me and my sister watched that video. She was the one that discovered the video. That's why I brought up that I got her into it. She discovered this video and was equally as disappointed as I was because after I showed her the original, she ended up seeing that, and she's like, "I like that version better than this version." And I mean, it's a no brainer. The original show, even though it is a cheaper budget animation, it is so well done for what it is. And a big budget movie such as Lightyear, who only focus on the visuals rather than the writing, because I'm not gonna lie though, I like if there's one good thing in that movie, it's how it looks. That movie
Yeah.
looks amazing. Like
Yeah.
whoever was animating that knew what they were doing.
They put a lot of money into it. And
But that's the problem.
Yes.
That's the
They put-
problem. Like they could have went the Alita Battle Angel route and put a lot of money into both and actually did really good with the writing and the CGI, because the CGI in Alita Battle Angel is amazing. And the show itself, I believe, was written really well. But, I'm a little biased to that movie. I love that movie a lot.
I've never seen that either.
Watched it. There's two things on your list to watch. Well, no, that's the third thing on your list, because you still got
that's
the
the
Lord
thing.
of the Rings. Yes, there you go. I'm giving you stuff to fill up your gap of time. Lord of the Rings, the original Buzz Lightyear Star Command show, or at least that 1 hour thing with Tim Allen voicing it. That it still feels like Buzz Lightyear even without Tim Allen on that one, because they write the character the same way. But it feels even better though with Tim Allen voicing it. I mean, of course.
Right.
But you need to watch that, and then you need to watch Alita Battle Angel. So
How many
there's
other-
some stuff.
How many other things are we going to discover I haven't watched but should watch? Like,
Oh
it's
gosh.
like the theme of the evening.
Well, I don't know. We may figure it out, because I'm only going to give us about like 24 more minutes, I think, before I end the stream. I'm going to end it at like 2 hours and 30 minutes.
No 5-hour stream.
No 5-hour stream now. We look. Are you guys trying to raise the bar again on me? Like, we already did the 4 hour. Okay.
I know, and that's why we did raise the bar. So now it's 5 hours.
I'm not so sure that's going to happen.
Can you imagine if we did like an 8-hour stream?
Hey,
Like-
look, it's not that I wouldn't do it. I can imagine doing that actually. It's just the matter of having that time to do it.
It'd be one of those things where we're like, say, like us here in the Americas, you, I, and Chrono would be probably like just like exhausted, and then Soraya would just be like fully awake and chipper
Yeah.
and
Yes. Oh my god, that's true, because he's from the future, and we're in the past. So, oh gosh, but seriously though, watch those things that I mentioned to you at some point. Maybe even when it comes to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, watch the extended editions, because that gives you so much more. It's worth it. It really is.
I was gonna ask kind of whether it makes more sense to like just go all in with extended editions or just stick to the basics.
Well, it depends on how much time you have, because I think
Right.
the extended editions add like an extra 3 hours worth to each one. And they're already almost 3 hours long, I think. I'm not kidding about that. The extended editions adds a lot. So, I mean, I even like, if you were closer to me, I would literally just take the ones that I have right here, because I have the extended editions in 4K because they released those out at my store down here. I have the extended editions of all the movies in 4K right behind me over here, or no, right next to me over here.
Nice.
And I would literally just take them to you and be like, here, watch these. Because I mean, I really do love those movies. They are really good. But
Yeah,
my sister loves them way more than I do. Like, she might hate me for saying this. Like, she had this poster that covered the entire wall with Legolas on it. It was a really nice poster. I'm not gonna lie, it was huge though. It was nice. And I mean that's how big of a fan she is though. She loves that stuff. But that and it might be harder to find Buzz Lightyear Star Command. There's a website I can probably link you to that I've
Yeah,
watched some of that stuff on.
I bet it's easier to find than one would think.
Well, I mean, you might be. That might be true.
You can find anything on the internet.
See, the sad thing is, it's not on Disney Plus, which I'm disappointed about.
Not surprised.
Like all the good stuff doesn't end up showing up. You'd think they might would have put it on there when Lightyear released, and be like, "Oh, well, here's some more Buzz Lightyear content too. Here you go." But maybe because
Physical
that
media.
show is superior. Oh yeah, physical media. I also have the DVD. I think I still have the VHS of the original Buzz Lightyear 1 hour thing, but I do know I have the DVD of it right now because I had to order it because I don't have a VHS player anymore, but I do have the DVD of it as well, and I would take that to you too if I could, so you can watch it because man, I'm telling you, it was good. It was amazing. I also have
bet.
Alita Battle Angel as well, and you can ask Chrono. I'm pretty sure it was you, Chrono, that loves Alita Battle Angel as well, right?
Oh yeah, Battle Angel is a great movie, great adaptation. If we take into account only the anime version, it's even better than the anime.
See, I watched the anime too. I watched it, and I love the movie way better.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing to say because usually live action adaptations to anime aren't that good.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Didn't you watch Cowboy Bebop?
Don't get me started. Look, I may not be as far into Cowboy Bebop or love it as much as some people, Sir Anyway, that never showed up. But I'll tell you one thing. When I watched those on his channel with him during that watch party, oh gosh, it was an experience. Now, it wasn't the worst thing I'd ever seen, but I'm telling you, there was a few things in there that really like bugged me, like Farquaad. Vicious. I think I showed an image on here once before, but just look up like Vicious and Farquaad, and just look at how similar they look.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's insane. But the live action did not feel like the show. It looked nice, and they got a couple of the characters really. They got them down pretty good, in my opinion, in certain aspects. But there was other aspects about certain characters that I didn't like that they added in that didn't exist in the show, from what I've seen so far. And I've watched most of the show, so I don't think they're going to add in an arc for what was his name? The guy that was with Spike. What was his name?
Jet.
Jet. I knew it. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, Jet. They didn't have an arc in the show that I've seen so far where he's a deadbeat dad. He's just a bounty hunter type of guy.
Yeah.
I didn't like that they made him into a deadbeat dad. I liked that he was, just a fun character to be around. But I will say, the actor playing him did a great job at capturing how the character acted and sounded. Like, he did a really good job at that. I was amazed at that part. But the rest of the show was sort of just trash. So...
And the best part was, of course, Daniela Pineda trashing men and saying we are all sexist because we wanted the accurate costume for Faye.
Yep.
Which made zero sense when you think about the fact that she was wearing for some of the scenes she was wearing the purple dress, which is far more revealing that she would have gotten with the yellow outfit. And also, this is a person who has been in other media half naked. So, I mean, Do you really have an issue with revealing outfits? I mean,
They only have it when they're trying to send a message. That's the only
Yeah.
time they have an issue with it. But then you'll go see their other media where they do the exact opposite of what they're preaching at that point and be like, you didn't have a problem with it at this point in time. So what's the difference now? And it's only because they're trying to send a message. And that's usually how it goes.
yeah, it's really bad. I mean, in regards to the anime and live action thing, I honestly think they should not adapt anime into live action. It's really really hard. Anime is a very visual medium. It's meant for the creators to do any sort of crazy things with the characters and the themes. So when you try to ground that to the real world, most of the times it will not work. I mean, Alita works because it's about sci-fi, androids, and people with enhancements, and that trope has been around in movies and media forever. So it's kind of easy to pull it off. Same with Ghost in the Shell. It doesn't look terrible because they have been doing it for decades. But when you right now we have the upcoming One Piece live action adaptation. One Piece is pretty much like Dragon Ball. It's got a lot of fantasizing elements that will make no sense in the real world. I mean, the main protagonist is a guy who turns into rubber. How are you going to do that? I mean, most of the time he is actually like rubber, and then you have this other guy who's half a shark, and all the characters are crazy like that. How are you going to pull that off on a TV screen?
I don't think they should. I really don't think they should. I think that if they're going to do a live action, I think they need to try Naruto. Because it feels like it can be more grounded than, let's say, One Piece, where they have a guy that literally turns to rubber.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Like,
Naruto is about ninjas, so yeah, they have done ninjas before. It can be done.
But that's just me. And I'm afraid though they would ruin that too. So in a way, I don't want them to do it. But if they were going to do it right, if they were going to pull an Alita Battle Angel with it, by far, like that would be one of the best things ever in my lifetime because I love Naruto. But anyways,
I don't think they will because Naruto is already past the peak popularity. Right now, if they were to pick another show, it would be My Hero Academia.
that's probably true, but I feel like that'd be way too out there.
That's a very very hard show to create in real life. It's incredibly hard because the characters are really weird.
They're very quirky, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a nice one.
I thought it was.
That reminds me. That reminds me. I mean, it's a related. No, it's not related to the topic, but we were talking about anime, and I just found out yesterday that some of the textbooks for elementary school in some states here in Mexico are using Komi-san for exercises.
Really?
Yeah, they're. I mean, they're probably going to get sued or something, but because they clearly don't have the license. But someone showed me the textbooks, and they show images of the anime, and they tell the kids the story in a broad way, so they can analyze it and answer some questions. I think it was really cool of them to do that.
Oh yeah. I mean, they see the way schools used to do it for me. They had this very generic stuff. If you bring in some of the stuff from entertainment that people would probably know about nowadays, that would probably bring their interest in education a little bit higher. As long as it's not like making what they're learning inaccurate, it needs to pertain to what they're learning. It needs to actually be true education and not just something there to, fill in the blanks. Maybe I'm not explaining that right, but that can work. They just got to do it right.
What do you think about that, Commander Tano? Because you seem like a very academic-oriented person.
what I'm thinking is it's like I'm and by the way, like if the dogs start savagely barking again, I apologize. But what I'm thinking is I'm it this sounds bad, but it's like I'm glad that I'm like, you know, with certain franchises, obviously it's too late for me, but I'm glad with certain ones that I like know nothing about them, and so I don't have to go through the kind of the suffering that their fan bases have to go through, or when they're put through the ringer with these adaptations. Yeah, so ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Well, in that case, yes. If you've not watched Cowboy Bebop, then you're probably going to be completely okay when hearing about the things that's happened with the new show.
The thing though is then I don't necessarily get, I guess, part of the fun of kind of like just dumping on it too. So but yeah, I'm glad I don't have to go through the suffering that others have had to go through.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have seen this.
it's really. I think it's really interesting that these people, they really don't care. We know they don't care, and they just take the franchise because it's popular and they want to cash on it. But I think that is there no one really there who has a brain like saying, you know what, this is not going to work. It's not going to make money. They're going to hate us for it. We're still going to invest in it, and we're not getting it back. So why do it? I mean, I would understand if this was like an experimental thing, if they were trying for the first time. They have done it like how many times now? And they never get anything back because people don't watch it, people don't buy the merch. So yeah, there's really a huge disconnect between the people in charge of money and the people who are just like, oh yeah, it's approved. You can go ahead. Put that. I don't know.
Yep. Well, I'm sure that if Soraya was here, he'd have a very lengthy rant about that kind of stuff. Probably also mentioning Ghost in the Shell mainly because he really hates that one.
He's gonna
And
like show
Cowboy
up right now. He's gonna show up right now, I bet. And we're gonna have like an 8-hour stream.
An 8-hour stream. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, we don't have a particular topic we're talking about today. We're just sort of jumping from topic to topic. That's. I feel like if we involve him in one in this relaxation stream, whatever we want to call it, chill stream, I don't know. And I'd say it could last for about 8 hours. It really could.
Yeah, I think so. But it was great to have Commander Tano here because we were talking about the whole feminism thing in media, and well, she's the expert clearly because she's a Mary too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they can't fault us if we have a woman on stream. Isn't that right, Commander Tano?
Exactly.
But some people might say we're weaponizing her gender against people. Well, that's
Yeah,
not true. She's
I'm
voluntarily here of her own free will. I am not holding a gun to her head, I promise. She's too much of a Mary Sue for that. Like she probably wouldn't get the reference, but she'd almighty push me away just by looking at me. She won't get the reference, but I'm sure you do.
People listening to the show, they probably don't realize that she's the one calling the shots here. We're just going along.
I'm the host for show. She's the actual host. Oh gosh. Well,
but in all seriousness, Commander Tano, did you actually watch some of She-Hulk, or did you just watch the clips?
It's like there's nothing, and once again, this may be unfair. It's like, oh, you're not giving it a chance. Like there's nothing to watch in my view. I've seen enough, and that's the thing too. Is to anyone who says like, oh, you should always give a show a chance. don't, make decisions based off of marketing or whatever. It's like, no, that's why marketing exists, so you can make decisions
Yeah.
based off it. The companies want you to make decisions based off of marketing. Granted, they want you to make the decision to watch their show. But the same holds true if it's okay for you to make a decision to watch something based off of marketing, it's okay for you to decide not to watch it based off of the marketing. And yeah, it's and that's and sometimes I think, I do think sometimes, whether it's intentional or not, you find companies will like sabotage themselves through their marketing. And yeah, you can have like legitimately good shows or movies, or ones that at least weren't as bad as the marketing made it out to be, and like people end up not giving something a chance. That happens, but that's just the fault of the corporation. It's like, that's not
Yeah.
my fault, the viewer.
Yeah, you have to be at least a little bit tempted to watch whatever they're putting out, because if the trailer is already turning you off, then why would you watch the show?
Honestly, I feel like with the marketing for this one, it's like, and I was telling Shade, something to this extent. It seems deliberate, like they're deliberately trying to sabotage to get hate views. Like, I could see like this show, like honestly, like this makes sense as like a riff tracks or mystery science theater type kind of thing, where it's like it would make more money if you just had these shows where people riff, watch it and riff off of it. It sounds like one of these things that's just so bad it's almost good.
Yeah. There's an example of like never just trust the marketing though that I can give, because like just because sometimes though that the marketing is either really bad or really good doesn't mean that what the final product is will be either. But most of the time, if the marketing is bad, it's probably already going to be bad. So yes, the marketing is there to make a first impression type of judgment. But if you really truly want to be able to go out and say, "Hey, this is bad," and also have like that what the status of being like, "Oh, I watched it, so I can say this," kind of thing. Halo 5 would be a perfect example of good marketing, bad product. And when I say that,
I think so. Yeah.
when I say that, this could be a very lengthy discussion, but I'm just going to make very small statements about this because we're almost out of time. But and there's not many instances like this, So most of basically everything you said, Commander Tano, is true. But there are these small instances where the marketing is really good, but the product is not what they were
Yep.
selling. And Halo 5, like for instance, had really good trailers. Like everything in their marketing was telling a very, very interesting story about the universe that we were supposedly about to get into. And I really wanted them to do that with Halo Infinite, but they didn't do that, and I'm also thankful they didn't, because if we were getting that, because I think they put a lot of money into the marketing for Halo 5, like probably more than they should have. So I'm in a way thankful they didn't do that with Halo Infinite. But I feel like when it came to writing, marketing team did a better job at writing the story for Halo 5 than the people actually writing it. And that's a sad thing when the marketing is better than the product, like in that regard, because they wrote out the story on this audio series called Hunt the Truth that they were using to advertise Halo 5. It was like, I can't remember how many episodes it was, but if you have any interest in Halo at all, at least go listen to that audio series. It will make you at least enjoy certain aspects of the Halo universe, the parts that aren't covered in the Master Chiefs that you see on the games. You get like a little insight to civilian living and all that stuff in this universe. It's very interesting. But it Hunt the Truth is basically told from a journalist point of view who is trying to, I guess, paint a good picture of the Master Chief. But the thing is, Oni is the ones that are commissioning this article to be written, or this report or whatever that they're doing to be written about the Chief, and they are trying to push out a story that only they want the people to hear, because Oni is like, they're a big bad guy type of deal that hide in the shadows, but they are also not in the shadows. They are an organization that's supposed to be protecting humanity, but they have a dark side to them. And in a way, it almost feels like our government today, where they have a lot of secrets that they don't tell the people themselves. They put on a face on the outside, but on the inside they're dark. That kind of thing. At least that's some of the vibes I get from our government every once in a while. But the thing about Oni is they hold a lot of secrets, a lot of dark secrets. Like, they're part of the reason that a lot of children got kidnapped for the Spartan program, and replaced with Flash clones. You know, the clone, which I don't really have to explain this too much to Chrono,
Oh,
but
so now I do why you like Honey so much. Now it makes sense.
oh yes, Oni is a. Okay, oh wait, I get it. Okay, it took me a second. It took me a second to get that. Chrono, how dare you make an implication such as that? I do not.
Whatever do
I
you
do
mean?
not like it when children get hurt.
No.
I do not. I do not know what you're talking about. Anyway, I haven't done any of those clips today. That's a good one. That's a good one. But like Oni and Halsey, I guess Halsey worked with Oni on that one. I don't remember everything from the lore. I haven't been reading the books lately, but this is just a rough description of what happened. So basically, the Spartan program is just a bunch of super soldiers that were made to protect humanity. The dark secret about them is they're a bunch of children that were augmented from a very young age. They were kidnapped from their homes and replaced with flash clones that were made to die, so people wouldn't wonder where their child went. Their child is dead. So it's not only just that little dark secret, but they have a bunch of other ones too. See, Hunt the Truth is sort of exploring that aspect of the Halo universe that we don't get to see in the games, and that's why I love Hunt the Truth so much. And it's unfortunate, though, that it's, as far as I know, it's not canon to the universe, because Halo 5 went in a totally different direction when it comes to the hunt for the Master Chief than what they were advertising. So I was getting off on a little bit of a different, but
Yeah.
I brought it back. So anyways, the marketing for Halo 5, if you haven't seen any of it, you should really go and look at it, and then look at the story for the game itself, and you'll understand at that point how different the marketing was from the games. And it wasn't even just the audio series that they put out called Hunt the Truth. They also did some cool live action trailers, such as one version where Master Chief is holding up a gun to Spartan Locke's head, saying that you complete your mission, Spartan Locke, mine has just begun, and making him look sort of like a villain. And then they redo that same trailer, but the gun is in the other hand. And I'm talking about in the hand of Locke instead of Chief. So Locke is coming out and making this big speech about, is this what you wanted? And all that stuff. I can't remember what he said exactly to the Chief, but in the end, he's holding the gun up to the Chief, and Chief is on the ground at that point. And it's trying to get you to figure out, because everything ended with, like, I think hashtag Hunt the Truth. So everything ended in a way that made you think, which one's the truth? Where's the truth coming in here? Who is actually the bad guy here? Or what is Chief's mission? Like, there's so much when it comes to the marketing for that game that made it interesting. But the game itself came out, and we have the issue of a lack of story, It wasn't what it was advertised. The story didn't even line up with the marketing story. So that's what I'm talking about when the marketing is better than the product itself. Halo 5 is a prime example because you're not getting where advertised. And I mean, I guess that's also another way of saying false advertisement, though it was really good false advertisement until the product came out. And and that's what
Yeah,
ruins it.
this also happened with The Last of Us 2. I mean, The Last of Us
That
2
too.
deliberately created trailers with scenes that never existed in the game to make you believe things happened in a certain way. And if it had not been for some people that leaked out the material, people would have gone really disappointed when the game.
Yep.
I mean, it sucks because imagine if the leaks don't come through, and you pre-order the game not knowing that you're being lied to, and you already gave them your money, and that's terrible. I mean, they were so upset about the leaks, but the leaks were actually true. So they were willing to lie to this fan base that supported the game, that made the first game such a great such a great selling game for them. And what those customers got for their loyalty was a lie. I mean, it's terrible because then they are like outraged, and they make these campaigns to try to paint detractors of that game like they are evil, or like they are some sort of misogynistic bastards or whatever. But it's not that. Lied to. I mean, what did you expect? People are not going to clap around and shout like, "Yay, we were deceived." That's not going to happen.
And see, that sort of brings us full circle because we sort of started off with how certain corporations either are just very not secure about their leaks and stuff like that, and how that stuff ends up, either making or breaking people's thoughts about a certain movie franchise or show or whatever, So that if they expect people to enjoy the stuff that they are putting out, they really like. Sometimes they use leaks as a way to gauge what our thoughts would be. That's the intentional leaks, most likely. The unintentional ones is where they leak probably full scripts or maybe even just how the story ends in general. And those are probably the unintentional ones that they don't want out, but then when they hear that when they find out that it is out and that it's not well received, they start to panic, or they come up with ways of saying they come up with like excuses that they'll start to use when the game actually comes out and those leaks end up being true. So
yeah, I think the biggest take in all this, even all, it's funny because all the topics are connected to the one same thing. This in the media, whether it's entertainment or news or whatever, these people are extremely comfortable lying to everybody, and they expect their regular outcome for them is for the lie to come out and you to believe it. They just can't process the part where, oh, they didn't buy it. What are we going to do? And they panic and they start treating you like you're a terrible person because they want to force you into believing a lie, even though you know it's a lie, and they want you to go along with it. I mean, it's really messed up because instead of actually doing things the right way, like if you're doing a show, you're supposed to be doing a show that tells the story you want to tell, but you also want people to enjoy it. What the way things are right now, I'm gonna make this, and I'm gonna push this and this and this, and you're gonna get it and you're gonna like it. And if you don't, you're terrible. But the reason they do that is because they don't really want you to enjoy it. They just want you to consume it. It's a means to an end, and they don't really care if you like it or not. They what they care about is you agreeing with them, and they don't even care if it's a naturally occurrence. It's not like, oh, You think the same way I do? Cool. No, it's you have to think the same way I do.
See,
And they
that,
really have no remorse.
yeah. See, that's also like either an indicator that, of course, like you said, they don't care what you think; they just want you to consume it, or they don't. There's another thing: they could have no confidence in how they wrote it, and
Well, that
that's
too.
a whole other can of worms too.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like me and Commander Tony were talking about earlier, where do these people learn how to write? Because some people don't know how to write characters correctly, or
Okay.
The sound on mine briefly cut out, so
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, did he get silenced for speaking the truth?
a lot.
yeah, I actually took him off. Oh,
Okay, well, I don't know where I stopped, so I'm going to briefly mention this real quick because we are actually 10 minutes past the time I was going to stop, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We took 4 hours last time. Well, we could take that. Anyway, no, not again. not without Soraya. We can't do it without him. He's part of the reason why it goes 4 hours. I'm just kidding.
If you don't do 4 hours, you're a terrible person.
That's
I can play. You
you
gotta remember. You gotta remember. I can play the race card because I'm a minority.
Oh gosh, oh no. That's right. Oh no. The perks of having a diverse cast of people on your show. Oh gosh. No, I'm thankful for Chrono. I'm very thankful to have my minority friend. I'm gonna start calling you that now. Is that okay? My minority friend.
That sounds so offensive. I actually love it.
that's like so tacky. Like, it's so, and
Sorry,
You
I-
sounded like
it's like
Cartman.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna get like kicked off of YouTube for that one probably. My minority friend. I'm just gonna use that now. My minority
well, here's the
friend.
thing: if Chrono like provides an opinion that you don't like, what you do, here's the tactic I've seen: just call him, just say that he's a multiracial white. That's
There we
so.
go.
Therefore,
That's a good
he's
one.
no. That I've seen that like I've seen that like in certain. I forget what newspapers or in what context, but yeah, like that's the thing is that that's yeah.
Why
So
are
it's
white
like
people the bad
it's like
guys?
when feminists say that women who don't share their opinions are like misogynists, something like that.
Yeah, it kind of yeah. It's like they kind of lose the woman card. If
You're not a woman
yeah, if
if
they
you
have
don't agree.
yeah.
Oh, that's fun. So I guess you're not a minority if you don't agree with them, Chrono. So
Yeah.
sorry, you lost your minority card. Okay. Anyways, I don't remember where I was at last, so I think we're just gonna end it here. Um,
My
it's
Twitter
been a
will
good
now say
discussion.
minority friend of the Force Collective.
Maybe I should
Like
put in the
so.
description all my friends and give you guys a label. Mary Sue for Commander Tano, minority friend for Chrono, and I got to figure out something for Soraya. Why couldn't I remember
I
his
have a
name for
word.
some
I have a
reason?
word. But I can't say it on your family friendly stream. But
Oh
it is
no!
it's an Australian term of affection.
Oh,
I know which one you're choosing. I know
Yeah,
which one it is.
it starts with what does it rhyme with? Actually, what
Oh,
does it
God.
rhyme with?
I'm not. I'm not sure. nor am I going to try to figure that out because I know which one it is, and I'd say you're. No, I can't say that. That would be mean if I said you were right.
Well, it rhymes with it rhymes with stunt.
Stunt. Oh gosh. I knew it. I knew it.
If
I
that's the
knew it.
word I think it is, that you're gonna love The Boys. You hear that word like 20 times per episode.
Yeah, isn't that Butcher that says that?
Yeah,
100 times.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so
Mind
that's
you, I've not watched the show.
but yeah, Surayoe's title. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he would be very pleased with that title.
No, I think he'd be disappointed because if you remember with that, what was it? Who tweeted out something about Obi-Wan just
Oh
using
yeah,
that word?
that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, that was you that did that. Okay, so basically, you'd have to call him a bunch of other things too, not just that. That would be
Yeah.
Surayoe.
That's too family for him.
Yeah.
He
True.
has multiple titles. Well, anyways, we're gonna end the stream right here. So I'm not even gonna do the plug thing where I plug my Discord. That's clearly in the description below. What would make you think that I'm trying to plug that right now? Anyways, like
No.
really,
Huh.
yeah. I clearly don't have anything in the description below, so don't look down there. But if you do look down there is a Discord link. So I'm just kidding. Anyways, that's all for now. It's been fun, guys. But we'll see you later, and may the force be with you always.
Army with you at all quiet, Robert. Orders of command, a Republican soldier adjust to Corella sector, Corella sector. Hey guys, now 310, 2 marks at 345. Roger, Bravo, how's the driving?